All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 155. Sorry, the fall allergies continue, so we're going to have another little bit of congested episode here, but so much to talk about today. Look, other than the result of the Browns game, I had a great weekend watching football. We had football Thursday through Monday, which is incredible. We had, a great game on the Thursday night game that ended on a play with a foot on the line that decided the result of the game, which is always exciting. We had the Brazil game, which I don't know if anyone else noticed this or if it was just me personally, but I felt like the sound was so different. I don't know if it was Peacock or it was the fact that it was a soccer stadium and maybe the sound system that they have in there feels slightly different than a typical NFL game. But I just felt like it felt off the whole time listening to the broadcast for that game. So let me know if you also felt that way, because I just felt weird listening to it the whole time. So we had, the extra special Friday game, which was nice. College football day Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday, NFL again. So just happy to have football back in our lives. Wish the Browns result was a little bit different, but football's football. So I'm gonna enjoy the whole season regardless. I took a look before this at my picks from last week that I made on the episode. I went 10-6 for week 1, which is pretty good. I feel like not too bad. Could have been better. There were some results that probably, just didn't go as many people expected, but that's the beauty of the NFL. That is why they play the games, as we all say. So, I'm not going to get too much into the Ohio State game today because it was, of course, a ridiculous blowout. Pretty much a lot of the same sentiments from week 1. They have Marshall coming up this week, so can't say that's going to be a super competitive game again. But, I'm never going to complain about winning a football game, so I have that going for me because the result was not similar on Sunday. Look, I ended up going to the game on Sunday, and the vibes were so high in the morning. Like if you didn't see, there were the clips of Donovan Mitchell playing cornhole with fans in the Muni lot. You had Myles Garrett stopping by in the Muni lot as well, just getting out of his car, hugging fans, just getting pumped up with people. I think there was a picture that Grant Delpit was in the Muni lot as well. I don't know if I saw any videos of that specifically, but it just felt cool to see some of the Cleveland athletes out and about with the fans, always an exciting thing. And then that was pretty much where things started going downhill. Look, there is so many directions I can go in talking about this game because there was so little that went right for this team. There were multiple receivers, pass catchers dropping balls, which was very frustrating. Like when Njoku had his drop, I was like, yo, what year are we in? You don't do this anymore. This is not your MO anymore. So that was certainly frustrating because obviously that really stalls drives and hurts your ability to move the ball. The run game just never really got going, probably in combination with, no Nick Chubb out there. Also the offensive line kind of being held together by a thread, it felt like. Jack Conklin didn't play, Jedrick Wills didn't play, and you're going up against a pretty talented Dallas defense. So, that offensive line really showed a lot of weaknesses, and I think we were all hoping that even with those guys out, they would be able to hold it together. But even, like DeJuan Jones didn't look great. So the guys we thought we could rely on really struggled as well. Tons of penalties, a lot of sloppiness, specifically on early downs. Like when you have these penalties on first down, it is so hard to come back from that. It really makes things tough for your offense to move the ball when you're getting penalty after penalty after penalty just for stupid mental errors that they should not be making. Look, I know everyone wants to talk about the play calling, and you guys all know how I feel about Kevin Stefanski and my belief in him. It was a pretty vanilla offense, conservative in general, I would say. I think it was pretty clear they had no trust in the quarterback to throw the ball downfield, and that was probably partially why the offensive play calling was so conservative and so vanilla. But yeah, you would have liked to see it. I think we were all hoping to see this offseason with them bringing Ken Dorsey in and a lot of new faces in the offensive staff, that it was going to evolve a little bit. We could still see that as the season goes on, but it was not, super promising week one. And, I don't know what the reason for that is. If it truly is a distrust in the quarterback, if there's more to it, I don't really know. But it was, there just wasn't a lot of difference that we saw out there. Now, having said all of that, all of those things, the quarterback play was really, really bad. I think, Watson has not looked for 1 second like the quarterback that he used to look like in Houston. And that is a frustrating thing for a lot of reasons that we've talked about many times and everyone has beat into the ground. But when you pay a guy like a franchise quarterback, I've said this, I said this in one of the videos I made earlier this week, you expect him to be able to step up and overcompensate for those issues. I know people want to talk about that he didn't have enough time to throw the ball and all these different things. He actually did have enough time to throw the ball. On his pressure dropbacks, he had 4.16 seconds to throw the ball. That was 8th in the league. So he had time to throw the ball. He wasn't able to make the throws. I think consistently the thing that we've been seeing with him is that he is holding on to the ball too long when he is not seeing the field very clearly. Like, it felt like there were open receivers and his vision of the field was just not there. He was not able to see his guys. He still has that ability to scramble around and, lengthen plays, but when you can't actually make the throws, that's not super valuable at the end of the day, because he's either making a bad throw or lengthening the play, but then taking a sack in those moments. So it's really frustrating. It felt like in the first half of the game, he was really throwing the ball into the dirt a lot. And then in the second half of the game, it felt like it was, 10 feet past the receiver and he was just missing throws in general. So really frustrating performance, I would say, from the quarterback. And, saying that he was bad doesn't discount that those other things were bad. Saying those other things were bad doesn't discount that the quarterback is bad. It all lives in the same world, in the same ecosystem. It was all very much not pretty. He dropped back 57 times, had 17 QB hits, 6 sacks, just brutal. Those were in combination for, I would say, his fault and the offensive line's fault. 2 interceptions. I think he was about 24 of 45. I think that's about 53% completion percentage for only 169 yards. Just any way you look at it, not pretty in general. The defense really struggled more at home than I would have expected, especially after last season, on how much better they were at home than they were on the road. I will say the one positive on the defense, I thought the secondary looked pretty good. Greg and Denzel Ward had some great coverage throughout the game, and that was really nice to see because, the Cowboys have some really talented receivers, so it felt like they a lot of the time had things locked down decently. Obviously, there were issues here and there, but in general, I thought they looked pretty good. Another positive, Dustin Hopkins looked great, especially in comparison to, our old friend Cade York, who missed 2 field goals and got cut this weekend. They made the right choice at kicker, so we have that going for us at least. But yeah, it's just a tough game overall. I don't want to beat it into the ground because it's week 1. I know there's a long season ahead of us. But gosh, it was really hard to watch and not what we wanted to see. I would have much rather this game at least be somewhat competitive and the team be somewhat in it. But to feel like, they had, one good drive at the beginning where they had that field goal, there was a good defensive stop earlier on. And then it felt like it started to derail. And there was a point towards the end of the first half where there were just a lot of really crucial mistakes, that kind of put the game out of reach in a way. So it was not great. I do want to talk about this topic, which I really don't like talking about on here, that has to do with just the quarterback in general and the history of the last couple of years of quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Before I get into that, I just wanted to mention that there is another case being brought upon Deshaun Watson, another accusation that has been made for sexual assault. This is different, actually, than the cases that had previously took place and the accusations that were made against him before. This is actually a case of sexual assault from 2020 when he was still in Houston. It seems like because of the differences in this case, there is the possibility that the NFL is able to review this and look at this again in a different way, just with the way things are written within the rules. It's also, I think, written differently within the Browns contract, that there is potential for them to get out of it if there are new accusations that he did not disclose to the organization previously that could come out. Then that, they would be able to get out of the contract with him. Don't want to, jump ahead to anything because I have no idea what's going to come from it, what the investigations are going to lead to, if the Browns or the NFL are going to do anything at all, but just wanted to bring that up, that is going on right now, and we'll just kind of have to keep watching it as an investigation goes forward and see what happens. But yeah, really tough to read allegations once again, and I hate that this is continuing to cloud over the football team that I root for. It's not fun every time another article comes out, and I'm sure it's not fun for, the women involved either. So, all right, let's get into the other quarterback topic that I needed to discuss, which is one Baker Mayfield. Because this comes up, I feel like once a year I have to come on this podcast and talk about Baker, in regards to just the quarterback situation in Cleveland and how everything went. Look, I want to kind of take us back to 2021 when these decisions had to be made, and they were, Baker was going through the season that he was going through, and the team was kind of deciding what to do with the future of the quarterback position. The front office took a swing and missed very badly. I, from the very first day, did not want Deshaun Watson to be the swing that they were taking. This was not something I or many people wanted for the big swing for this football team. I mean, I literally was crying on this podcast when they made that decision because I was upset for my team to be the team that would trade for this guy. The logic for the front office of going big is sound logic if it wasn't this situation. There is value in getting a guy that can be the guy and swinging for the fences, because that can change your entire franchise. The mindset of the front office is sound in that sense. The person they pick to do it with, that's where I, obviously struggle to defend them. I can't defend that. If you genuinely hate the front office, regardless of any other moves they made because of this one move, I can't really blame you for that, because it is the most massive move that you make is the decision on what you're doing with the quarterback position. So I don't blame you if you're I don't like what this front office has done because of that move. It's such a big, massive move. So I do want to say that the logic of taking a swing makes a ton of sense. The player they chose to take a swing on makes absolutely no sense to me. If we, again, flash back to that time with Baker Mayfield, I need to remind people that they were going to be moving on from Baker Mayfield in that moment, regardless of who it was. I feel like I have to remind people every so often of that, because I feel like there's a lot of revisionist history with how things went down. At the end of Baker's time in Cleveland, the relationship he had with the Cleveland Browns was not salvageable. Not one person in the national media that I saw thought that the Cleveland Browns would or should give Baker Mayfield the $200 million extension that he was looking for at that point in time. Everyone in the national media and fan bases across America were laughing at the Cleveland Browns, saying, you guys are a quarterback away and you're about to pay Baker Mayfield a ton of money and he's not going to be the guy for you. That is what I have such a clear memory of this time. That is what everyone was saying about the Cleveland Browns. When they made the decision to move on and go with Deshaun Watson, obviously that's where a lot of the mindset changed, which I very much understand that. The Browns deserve a ton of criticism for making that move for Deshaun Watson. But I just want to remind people that everyone was largely behind the fact that they should move on from Baker Mayfield and they should not pay him I need to remind people, this is not like they were just going to give him like another year deal. He was looking for a large long-term extension at that point in time. And it was like, you can't pay this guy all of that money. That is not going to make any sense. That was the mindset at that point in time. Then once they moved on and brought Deshaun Watson in, nobody wanted to trade for Baker at that point in time. His reputation was down. He somehow was able to we were able to get the deal with the Panthers, where, let me remind you, the Browns had to pay like $10 million of that contract and the Panthers only paid $5 million. So the Browns still had to take on a lot of that for a team to be able to take him and get him off their hands, because he obviously wasn't going to stay on that roster. He was very bad in Carolina. He was fine in LA. He was good in some of the primetime games, but I think people didn't maybe watch all of the games there. He still struggled a little bit there. And then, he got an opportunity in Tampa. And look, I give him all the props in the world for what he's done in Tampa, fighting back, winning the job, getting a new contract. Genuinely, I think that is so impressive, so admirable. And he was able to do that. From there, the man has even said himself, he said it on Part of My Take, which I talked about on here. He said it publicly on other shows. He has acknowledged how much growth he needed since his time in Cleveland as a person to get him to where he is today. He knows he didn't always handle things right. He himself has acknowledged that. I think he was really humbled by the experience. It kind of made him maybe rethink how he was handling some things. He's shown a lot of humility since then. And, I think it's very impressive that he has been able to bounce back in his career, become kind of like a mid-level QB again in this league, kind of where he was in a lot of ways before, when at one point with Carolina, he was this close to being out of the league. He was this close to being maybe a just perpetual backup for the rest of his career. Like, he was not going to be a starter at that point in time. So I give him so many props for that. I think that is super, super impressive. That doesn't change what happened earlier on before that, and the logic that everyone was under during that period of time. You can't just look in the future and be like, oh yeah, the Browns should have given him like whatever $200 million extension at that point in time. And because no one felt that way. Nobody felt that way at that point in time. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because every so often the Oklahoma Sooners fans come out of the woodwork to argue with me about this again. And look, I'm not going to directly argue with any of them. That I just don't want to argue in situations where people don't want to look at the nuance of the situation, if they don't want to look at the context and they just want to yell their opinions. Like, I don't have the energy to be arguing like that. So just to go over all of this, did the Browns in 2021 need to move on from Baker Mayfield? Yes. Did most people universally agree that they shouldn't give him that max contract, 4 or 5 year extension that he wanted and was going to demand at that time? Yes, they needed to move on from him, and most people universally agreed that. Did the Browns make a horrible choice in bringing in Deshaun Watson? Yes. Has Deshaun Watson been terrible in Cleveland? Also, yes. I need the Sooners and everyone else to understand that both of those things can exist at the same time. If you're willing to look at the full picture, those things can coexist together. I love football. I love breaking down football games. I do this podcast. I create content. I tweet about the games because I really enjoy it. I get a lot of joy out of talking about the sport, out of talking about Cleveland sports specifically. I consider myself to be a pretty positive level person. Like, I think if you have followed me for any sort of time on any platform, if you've listened to this podcast, if you've consumed my content, I try to be pretty reasonable with things, pretty level with a lot of my takes. So when, fan bases are coming at me with like all of this negativity and trying to, I don't know, make things seem like something they aren't, I just have no interest in doing that. It makes the internet not fun for me. So I'm comfortable with my takes and opinions. I like being able to talk about them on long form episodes like this. Like I said, I try to be reasonable and level-headed with, everything that I'm putting out there. So I'm not in the world of Twitter arguing much anymore. I'll let you know how I feel in a tweet. I'm not doing the back and forths. It's not fun for me anymore. And I also want to say this, contrary to the belief of others, if you listen to this, I was on the we should keep Baker's side until very close to the end of his final season in Cleveland. I was getting a lot of hate actually in the opposite direction for a while, because I felt like the Browns weren't going to be able to trade for the star talent that they were wanting to trade for. I was very much in the camp of you might have to move forward with Baker for a large portion of that entire season, really until the very end when things went so sour between him and the organization. And I was like, okay, we need to make a move for even like a Kirk Cousins type at that point in time. I didn't like how he started handling things online. I didn't like the way he was talking about the organization publicly. I thought it was going to be detrimental to his career, the way he was talking about the organization publicly. And it was for some time. At that time, like I said, Carolina was the only team that wanted him, and the Browns had to eat a lot of that contract still. So I feel like that narrative of, me being like the biggest Baker hater in the entire world is just, it's not accurate. I was championing him for quite some time until things got so bad, and I felt like there's no coming back from where things are with him in this organization right now. And I thought they could make a move to even a lateral player like a Kirk Cousins, and sign him to a deal is kind of where my mindset was at that time. So it's also just funny that that is the case, because I got so much hate in the opposite direction for a while, and then it kind of flipped. So look, again, the Browns made a terrible choice in the guy that they decided to bring in. I'm not going to defend that. I've never wanted to defend that, because I think it has been such a stain on the organization, and it's made me sad that I can't love the quarterback on my football team. But it does not change the fact of where the team stood with Baker Mayfield, where everyone stood with Baker Mayfield at that point in time. All of that is still true. So just wanted to clear that up. Sorry to go all internet on this episode, because I know I like to talk actual football games more on here, but had to get in that. So congrats to Baker on bouncing back. I'll be interested in watching the team this season. I did pick the Buccaneers to win their division, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's get into my week 2 picks. We'll see if I can beat my 10-6 record for week 1. We got Bills-Dolphins, going to be a great Thursday night football game. I'm taking the Bills in this. They did struggle a little bit week 1, so I could very much see the Dolphins being able to pull this out, but we're taking the Bills. Saints at Cowboys. After what the Cowboys just did to the Cleveland Browns, I am taking the Cowboys. Buccaneers at Lions. Loved what the Lions did this week, taking the Lions. Colts at Packers. Jordan Love out, so I am taking the Colts. The Colts, I think, are going to surprise a lot of people this season. They had a tight game with the Texans last week, so taking the Colts. Jets at Titans. The Jets looked a lot better than I thought they would. Actually, Aaron Rodgers looked a lot better than I thought he would. A lot less rusty, so I'm taking the Jets. 49ers at Vikings. I got the Niners. Seahawks at Patriots. I have the Patriots. After they beat the Bengals in week 1, which was probably the craziest result of week 1. It makes me feel a little bit better about what happened with the Browns. Also so crazy that the Steelers are the only AFC North team to win in week 1. It's actually poetic that that's the case, that the Ravens, the Bengals, and the Browns all lost and the Steelers win by not scoring a single touchdown and just winning on field goals. Like, just so classic for the Steelers in the AFC North. So yeah, Patriots I'm taking. Giants at Commanders. I'm taking the Commanders. Chargers at Panthers. I'm taking the Chargers. The Panthers, man, I don't know if you're going to win a game this season, guys. Browns at Jaguars. I'm taking the Jags. I don't know where the Browns go from here. Maybe I'm sending them better juju by picking against them this week. We'll see. I hope they win. I just am struggling to find confidence in this team right now. Raiders at Ravens. I'm taking the Ravens. Rams at Cardinals. Taking the Cardinals. The Cardinals surprised me a little bit. So I think the Rams are good too, but I just feel like I wanted to pick something spicy there. So we're taking the Cardinals. Steelers at Broncos. I'm taking the Steelers. Bengals at Chiefs. I have the Chiefs. And lastly, Bears at Texans. I have the Texans. That is all my picks for week 2. Hopefully the Browns are going to be 500 after I talk to you guys next time and there's more positive things to say. And we can talk more actual fun game stuff and not have to talk about how bad everyone looked. But we'll see. This was like one of my more negative episodes I've ever had, so I'm really sorry for that. I hope I can be more positive next time. Let's just like cross our fingers, hope for the best. I don't know. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you could leave me a review or rating on Apple or Spotify, comment on the YouTube, subscribe on the YouTube, would very much appreciate that. Share with a friend. Regardless of the Browns result, once again, football is back and I'm so grateful for it. So we're just going to hold on to that feeling. Thank you guys so much for listening. And no matter what, as always, go Browns.